Most gardeners think summer planting is over by July. You've got your tomatoes and peppers in and now, you're just maintaining watching the season wind down. But that is actually the most expensive mistake you can make. Not in money, but in missed food. Every empty bed or idle container in your yard right now is a missed harvest. Here's the secret: planting in July and August is actually easier. The days are getting shorter, the nights are cooler, and autumn crops absolutely thrive in this weather. You're not planting into the brutal heat, you're planting toward the easy part of the year. Today, we're looking at 10 crops you can plant right now that will fully mature before the first frost. And make sure you stick around for number 6. It goes in the ground latest of all, but still delivers like crazy. The crop that gets better every time the temperature drops. Kale is a 55 to 70 day crop depending on variety, which means seeds started in late July are harvestable in late September. But the reason kale belongs at the top of this list is not just the timing. It is what happens to kale in cold weather. Kale converts starches to sugars in response to frost. A kale leaf harvested in September before any frost is good. The same plant harvested in October after 2 or 3 light frosts is noticeably sweeter, more tender, and more complex in flavor than it was 2 months earlier. The frost does not damage kale, it finishes it. This means kale planted in summer does not merely survive until first frost. It gets progressively better as the season ends. It is the rare garden crop where patience into autumn is rewarded rather than punished. Direct sow kale in garden beds or containers when soil temperatures are below 85 degrees Fahrenheit, which in most parts of the US means waiting until late July or early August, even if air temperatures are still high. Kale seeds germinate poorly above 85 degrees soil temperature. Water the planting area in the morning for a few days before sowing to cool the soil if needed. Varieties to look for include lacinato, also called dinosaur or Tuscan kale, red Russian, and winterber. All 3 handle fall production well. Lacinato is the most cold tolerant and has the best flavor after frost. Red Russian has the most tender leaves for raw eating when young. Winterber is the highest yielding of the 3 in terms of raw volume. Thin kale to 12 to 18 inches between plants. It needs space to develop fully. Begin harvesting outer leaves when plants reach 12 inches tall, leaving the central growing point intact so the plant continues producing. A well-managed kale plant started in late July can still be producing usable leaves through November and into December in much of the US without any protection. The summer planting that most people never try. Broccoli has a reputation as a spring crop. Plant in early spring, harvest before summer heat triggers bolting. That reputation is accurate and incomplete because broccoli is equally well suited to fall production, and fall-grown broccoli is arguably better than spring-grown broccoli. Here is why. Spring broccoli races toward heat. You plant as early as possible, and the crop is always in a tension between reaching maturity and being pushed into premature flowering by warming temperatures and lengthening days. Fall broccoli has the opposite dynamic. It is maturing into cooler, shorter days, which means it develops slowly and evenly without heat pressure. The heads are tighter, the flavor is sweeter, and the harvest window is longer because cold temperatures slow the opening of the florets rather than accelerating it. Broccoli takes 60 to 80 days from transplant depending on variety. For a fall harvest in most of the US, count backward from your first expected frost date and add 2 weeks as a buffer. If your first frost is October 15, you want transplants in the ground by August 1. That means starting seeds indoors in early to mid-July. Starting broccoli seeds indoors in summer is the step most gardeners skip, partly because it feels counterintuitive to start a cool season vegetable during the hottest weeks of the year. The seeds do not care about the air temperature. They germinate fine on a cool indoor surface. Start them in a cool room or basement if possible, or under air conditioning. Move seedlings outdoors about a week before transplanting to harden them off. Varieties specifically bred for fall production include Belstar, Gypsy, and Marathon. These handle temperature fluctuation better than most spring varieties and produce tighter, longer-lasting heads in cool fall weather. One additional return from fall broccoli that most people overlook: side shoots. After the main head is harvested, broccoli plants in cool fall weather reliably produce secondary side shoots for several additional weeks. These smaller florets are often sweeter and more tender than the main head. A well-managed fall broccoli plant can produce a main harvest in late September and side shoots through October and into November. The fastest warm season crop that most gardeners stop planting too early. Bush beans are a warm season crop, unlike everything else on this list. They need warm soil to germinate, they do not tolerate frost, and they should not be planted in fall the way kale and broccoli should. What makes them a legitimate summer planting for fall harvest is their speed. Most bush bean varieties reach harvestable size in 50 to 60 days from direct sowing. A planting in late July or very early August in most of the US will be producing beans in late September, ahead of the first frost in most zones. You are using the tail end of the warm season to grow a fast warm season crop that wraps up before cold kills it. Bush beans planted in late summer also face less pest and disease pressure than spring-planted beans. The bean beetle populations that peak in June and July are declining by August. Japanese beetle pressure, which can devastate early bean plantings in much of the eastern US, is largely over by mid-August. A late planting sidesteps the worst of the insect calendar. Direct sow bush beans in a location with full sun and soil that has been watered the day before planting to ensure good moisture at seed depth. Plant seeds 1 inch deep and 3 inches apart. Do not thin. Germination occurs in 7 to 10 days at soil temperatures above 60 degrees. In late summer, most US garden soils are warm enough that germination is faster than spring, often 5 to 7 days. Do not plant bush beans where beans grew in the previous 2 seasons. Rotating the bed reduces the soil-borne disease pressure that builds in soils planted continuously with legumes. Varieties that perform well for late-season planting include Provider, which was specifically developed for tolerance of cool germination conditions and performs well at both ends of the season, and Contender, another reliable early producer with excellent flavor. A late July planting of bush beans in a 10-foot row will produce 8 to 12 pounds of fresh beans across a 3 to 4 week harvest window. That is a meaningful quantity of fresh vegetables from a planting that most gardeners would not think to make. The fall crop that outperforms its spring version, because the fall planting context is different enough to deserve its own treatment. Spring spinach is a race. You plant as early as possible, harvest as fast as possible, and accept that bolting will end the season whether you are ready or not. The heat that terminates spring spinach is coming whether you like it or not, and the best you can do is get as many harvests as possible before it arrives. Fall spinach is the opposite. The cooling temperatures that trigger bolting in other crops protect spinach and extend its season. Spinach planted in late August and September matures into October and can continue producing through November and even December in mild winter areas. Light frost sweeten it. Hard frosts slow it, but do not necessarily kill it, particularly if the plants have developed a robust root system before the cold arrives. Spinach under a layer of straw mulch or low row cover has overwintered successfully in USDA Zone 6 and warmer. The timing calculation for fall spinach is simple. Spinach reaches harvestable size in 25 to 30 days for baby leaf and 40 to 50 days for full-sized leaves. Count backward from your first expected frost date. Plant 6 to 8 weeks before that date for mature leaves, 4 to 5 weeks for baby leaf harvest. In most of the US, this puts fall spinach planting between late August and mid-September. The enemy of fall spinach germination is heat. Spinach seeds go dormant at soil temperatures above 85 degrees. If the soil is still hot in late August, pre-germinate seeds in a damp paper towel in the refrigerator for 48 hours before planting. This bypasses the heat dormancy and gives you reliable germination even when the soil is warmer than ideal. Varieties bred for fall and overwintering performance include Bloomsdale Long-Standing, Tai, and Space. All 3 handle temperature variability better than most catalog varieties and hold quality in the field longer before the cold forces them into dormancy. The underrated root that does double duty. Turnips are one of the most underused fall crops in the American home garden, and the reason is mostly cultural. Turnips have a reputation as Depression-era survival food, something people ate when nothing else was available. That reputation has persisted long past its accuracy and has caused millions of gardeners to overlook one of the most productive and fast-maturing root vegetables available. Here is the reality. A young turnip harvested at golf ball to tennis ball size is sweet, mild, slightly peppery, and genuinely good roasted, mashed, or eaten raw. The aggressive, harsh flavor that people associate with turnips comes from large, old turnips that have been sitting in the ground past their peak. Timing is everything, and the peak for turnip flavor is early. Turnips mature in 35 to 60 days, depending on variety. Direct sow in late July or August for a September and October harvest. Like kale and spinach, turnips improve in flavor after light frosts. Cool weather converts their starches to sugars, and a turnip harvested after 2 or 3 frosts in October is a noticeably different and better vegetable than one pulled in August heat. The turnip greens are a bonus. Young turnip greens harvested before the roots develop fully taste like a mild mustard green and are excellent sautéed or added to soups. You can begin harvesting greens within 25 to 30 days of sowing, before the roots are mature, which gives you fast greens while the roots continue developing. Varieties worth growing include purple top white globe, the classic American turnip, reliable and widely available. Hakurei, a Japanese salad turnip that is smaller, sweeter, and can be eaten raw with no cooking, and Scarlet Queen, red-skinned with excellent greens. Hakurei in particular challenges every negative assumption about what a turnip is supposed to taste like. The month-long harvest that most people miss entirely. Lettuce is traditionally planted in spring and considered a cool season crop that ends when summer begins. What most gardeners do not do is plant it again in late summer for a fall harvest, which is a significant missed opportunity. Fall lettuce planted in late August or early September matures in September and October, exactly when most U.S. gardens are winding down. The cool fall air produces lettuce that is crisper, more tender, and longer lasting in the field than spring lettuce, which is always being pushed toward bitterness by warming temperatures. The challenge with late summer lettuce planting is germination. Lettuce seeds go dormant at soil temperatures above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. In late August, most garden soils are still warm enough to block germination reliably. The solution is the same as with spinach. Pre-germinate seeds in a damp paper towel kept in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours, then plant the sprouted seeds in the garden or containers in the cool of the evening and water them in. Alternatively, start lettuce transplants indoors in air conditioning in mid-August, and move them to the garden in early September when soil temperatures have dropped. Transplants skip the germination problem entirely and give you a 2-week head start on the season. Loose-leaf varieties are again the best choice for fall production because they allow continuous harvest. Butterhead varieties like Buttercrunch and Boston are also excellent in fall and hold quality in cool weather for longer than they do in spring. Most red-leaf varieties develop more intense color in cool fall weather, making fall harvests visually better than spring harvests as well. A fall lettuce planting that goes in the ground in early September in most U.S. zones is producing full heads or harvestable leaves by early October and can continue with light row cover protection well into November. The dual-purpose fall crop that rewards patience by a month. Beets take 55 to 70 days to produce harvestable roots, which puts a late July or early August planting on track for a September and October harvest. As noted in the previous script, beet greens are harvestable within 25 to 30 days, which means you get a fast crop from the same planting while the roots develop underground. Fall-grown beets are meaningfully better than spring-grown beets. Cool temperatures convert beet starches to sugars, producing a sweeter, more complex flavor that has almost nothing in common with the metallic, earthy quality that turns many people off canned or store-bought beets. If you have tried beets from a can or from a grocery store and found them unpleasant, you have not tried a fresh beet pulled from cool fall soil and roasted immediately. The comparison is significant enough that it is worth making the case explicitly. Beets are also among the most nutritionally dense root vegetables available. 100 grams of cooked beet provides meaningful amounts of folate, manganese, potassium, and the betalains that give beets their intense color. Betalains are phytonutrients with antioxidant properties that are destroyed by excessive heat during commercial processing, which is another reason why fresh-grown beets are nutritionally superior to canned. Direct sow beets in July or early August. Each beet seed is actually a cluster of multiple seeds, so thinning is mandatory. Thin to one plant every 3 to 4 inches as soon as seedlings are large enough to handle. Thinnings are edible. Mulch around plants to retain moisture and moderate soil temperature. Varieties that perform well for fall production include Detroit Dark Red, the reliable standard, Chioggia, candy-striped interior, milder and sweeter than standard varieties, and golden, yellow, non-staining, sweet and beautiful on a plate. The crop worth planting in July for the sweetest harvest of the year. Carrots take 70 to 80 days from seed to harvest, which makes them the longest maturing crop on this list. A late July planting pushes the timing, but it works in most of the U.S. A July 20th sowing is harvesting around October 7th in 75-day varieties, ahead of most first frost dates. Earlier in July gives more buffer. Fall carrots are the best carrots of the year. The reason is the same as with most other fall root crops. Cool temperatures convert starches to sugars in the developing root, producing sweetness that no spring or summer carrot can match. A carrot left in the ground through several October frosts before harvest is genuinely sweet in a way that supermarket carrots, bred for uniformity and shelf life rather than flavor, simply are not. The germination challenge with summer carrot planting is significant and worth addressing directly. Carrot seeds are notoriously slow to germinate under the best conditions, typically 10 to 21 days. In hot, dry summer soil, the seeds dry out before germination completes, leading to poor or failed stands. The solution is aggressive moisture management in the 10 to 14 days after sowing. Water the seed bed daily, sometimes twice daily if it dries out quickly, until germination is visible. Covering the bed with a board or burlap to retain moisture and shade the soil's surface, checking daily and removing immediately at germination, is a reliable technique used by experienced gardeners for summer carrot sowing. After germination, carrots are relatively drought-tolerant and need less intervention. Thin to 2 to 3 inches between plants when seedlings are 2 inches tall. Mulch between rows to retain moisture and keep soil temperature even. Varieties for fall production include knot types for flavor and tender texture, Danvers for heat tolerance during germination, and Chantenay for heavy clay soils where longer varieties struggle to penetrate. Avoid very long varieties like Imperator types for late summer sowing in heavy soil. The one crop on this list you plan to harvest next year and why that still matters. This entry breaks the rules slightly. Garlic planted in fall does not harvest before frost. It harvests the following summer, roughly 8 to 9 months after planting. The reason it belongs on this list is that fall is the only window for planting garlic in most of the US, specifically between mid-September and mid-November depending on zone. And most home gardeners consistently miss this window because they are not thinking about planting in fall. If this video reaches you at the right time and you plant garlic in October, you are setting up an early July harvest of one of the most flavorful, long-storing food crops a home garden can produce. Garlic planted in fall puts down roots before the ground freezes, goes dormant through winter, and emerges in spring with a well-established root system that supports vigorous top growth and full bulb development by midsummer. Spring-planted garlic, which some sources suggest as an alternative, consistently produces smaller bulbs because the plants have less time to establish before summer forces bulbing. The difference between store-bought garlic and homegrown hardneck garlic specifically is not subtle. Commercial garlic available in US grocery stores is almost exclusively softneck varieties selected for long storage and machine harvestability. Hardneck varieties, including rocambole, purple stripe, and porcelain types, have more complex, intense flavor, larger individual cloves that are easier to peel, and escapes harvest in early summer that is a bonus vegetable in itself. Garlic scapes the curling flower stalks removed from hardneck varieties in June to direct energy into the bulb. Taste like mild garlic and are excellent grilled, roasted, or used anywhere garlic is called for. Plant garlic cloves 4 to 6 inches deep, 6 inches apart with the flat base down and the pointed tip up. Mulch heavily with straw after planting to moderate soil temperature through winter. Do nothing else until spring. The thing you plant where nothing else will go that feeds the soil and sometimes feeds you. This entry is different from everything else on the list, and it belongs here because the conversation about late summer planting inevitably confronts a practical reality. Not every empty bed in your garden in August is a good candidate for a food crop. Some of them are depleted from a heavy spring and summer growing season. Some of them have pest or disease pressure that rewards a season of rest. Some of them simply do not have enough weeks left in the season to produce a meaningful food harvest. For those beds, the right answer is not to leave them bare. Bare soil loses structure, erodes, and becomes a weed seed bank over winter. The right answer is a cover crop, and some cover crops are also food crops. Winter rye and hairy vetch are the most common overwintering cover crops in the US, and neither is edible. But crimson clover, which fixes nitrogen and has edible flowers and young leaves, can be sown in late summer and provides modest harvestable material before frost while feeding the soil through the fall and into spring. Field peas sown in late August in most zones will produce edible pea shoots within 3 to 4 weeks before frost slows them down, then continue root development through mild winters and resume growth in spring. Austrian winter peas and bell beans are varieties specifically suited to this double use. Buckwheat is a warm season cover crop that can be sown in August and produces harvestable flowers, a pollinator resource, within 4 to 6 weeks. It winter kills in most US zones, meaning it dies with the first hard frost and leaves behind a loose, easily worked residue rather than a thick mat that needs to be turned under. For beds that need rest, weed suppression, and pollinator support in August and September, buckwheat is one of the most useful plants you can put in the ground. The broader point is this: every square foot of your garden that goes bare in August through October is producing nothing, recovering nothing, and inviting weeds. The late summer planting window is not just about adding food crops. It is about keeping the system moving through the entire season rather than letting it stall at the end.